Hey there, YouTubers. This is Kevin from Survivor Super Fun Time Show, and today we have another really wonderful recap video for you. And this was a great episode. Huge blindside at the end. I don't think going into this episode anyone saw Kesan being voted out of the game. Not on my radar to be voted out this early. I thought Kesan and Teenie had quite the stranglehold on Lavo after the vote that got rid of Asia, but not the case. Kesan got a little fancy pants, and that ultimately ended up being his doom, because you can't mess with Rome like that. He's a crazy gunslinger of a player, and Kesan should have known that. But before we get into the episode too deep, I want to say please hit the subscribe button to this channel. It greatly helps grow this channel. As I talk about Survivor, I will yap about anything in this category, and it's really fun. But getting into the episode itself, I mean, the big thing was the fallout of the Lavo votes where they got rid of Asia. Teenie had a lot of explaining to do to Soul, and Soul was a little bit sad about what went on, which is rightfully so. He lost his number one ally. A lot of people lost their favorites to win the game when Asia walked out the door. And it was all because Rome really wanted it to happen, and Teenie and Kesan just didn't really want to go against Rome and the uncertainty of his idol. Could they have voted out Genevieve? Sure, they could have done that. But there was no guarantee that Rome wouldn't have played the idol on Genevieve, so they couldn't really go down that road in the safest way possible. And now, at the end of the episode, we find out Kesan gets voted out, and a lot of fans are like, oh, the Asia karma is coming back. Kesan, do you know who would have ridden with you if you had just kept her in the game? Asia. Which I think is super reductive and a bit silly if you really think about it, because the Asia vote is totally independent of why Kesan was voted out of the game. Kesan was voted out of the game because he got too fancy. He decided, instead of doing the easy thing and voting out Soul, who they knew didn't have an advantage, that would have been the safest vote and the safest route, rather than targeting Rome, who did have an advantage, and Kesan knew had an advantage, and still went after him, and tried to rope in his closest ally in Genevieve, which, according to Asia's exit interview from the previous episode, Genevieve and Rome were like this. And that's why Asia wouldn't pull in Genevieve before the vote, because she knew it was pointless to try to use Genevieve to go against Rome. And I'm curious, did Kesan know that? Was Asia so much more aware of the pairings that Kesan was actually kind of on the outs and didn't realize that? I don't think that's the case, but I mean, it could just simply be something where Asia, now many months removed from the game in her exit interviews, now can look back on the entirety of the season and realize that Genevieve and Rome were like this, even if at this time in the story in episode 4, maybe they weren't, but maybe they will continue to be. Who knows? That's what's so fun about Survivor. There's a whole story that's going to keep unfolding. I will say Lavo is very much on their way to being the disaster tribe of the season, and I didn't see that coming. I thought for sure Gata was going to be the disaster tribe of the season, but instead it turns out it's them. And Tuku was ripe to be the disaster tribe of the season, but it doesn't look like that's what's going to happen either. However, this episode was really fun with Tuku. Sue ended up finding a hidden immunity idol. She got the Beware advantage, and she found the vine, and she cut it, which was like one of the easiest ways to get an idol. But a bunch of, like a pot with a bunch of red dye fell on the ground. And it was the whole idea, like getting caught red-handed with the idol. And it was just so cheesy. And like, I know somewhere Jeff Probst is laughing his ass off, like, she's got to be red-handed. Yeah. Anyway, Probst, I'm sure, is tickled pink or tickled red, whatever color of paint he used that day. That the idea that Sue had to get this idol and dig it out and hide it and not get caught, which it actually did work, though. I will say that. It did definitely work. This really childish tribal paint thing worked, where Sue cleaned up most of it, but because they don't have mirrors, she couldn't tell that paint, like blood paint, was on her face when she was talking to like Tiana and Caroline. So they're like, "Oh, girl, are you okay?" She's like, "Oh yeah, I probably cut myself." Like, do you need to talk to somebody, or like what's going on? So naturally they were worried, but Sue had an idol and she couldn't tell them. I guess not. If it had just been Caroline, I think she probably would have told Caroline, but not Tiana. Tiana is dangerously close to the bottom of Tuku, and I'm curious to see how that develops in the end. But the number one strength for Sue finding the idol is, as a 45-year-old, I think she's remarkably good at keeping her mouth shut about things like this, because Sue is going to lock it down. Never have I seen someone at such a young age be able to really push out the external pressure that is constantly coming down on her. I mean, it takes a lot of wisdom and a lot of years of experience at the age of 45 years old in order to really be able to do that. So I'm glad she's gotten a lot of use out of her 45 years on this planet, and it looks like she's got an idol and she's ready to win this game. And she's gonna definitely not be the oldest player to win the game at 45 years old, but she's setting herself up to be a winner, just not the oldest, because she's 45. All right, I did my bit. It is so funny that Sue lied about being 45 years old when she's 58. I mean, that may be the most egregious lie in the history of Survivor. When Sue's like, oh, yeah, I'm 45 years old, but I'm really 58. No one knows. Are you kidding me, Sue? Listen, Sue is beautiful. I think Sue is crazy beautiful. I'm laying bare my heart and my attraction to Sue. She's gorgeous. I like her. However, 45, girl, why'd you even lie? What's the point of even lying? It's clear you're not slow in any of these challenges. I don't see any I think actually being the older woman, when you're actually physically capable, like a Maria, like a Mama J, like a Heidi from 44, they all went really far in the game. Older women are not viewed as anchors anymore in Survivor. If you can hold your own, you're going to be fine. Now, will you win the game in the end? Well, all three of those women that I just mentioned got close, but couldn't exactly bite the cherry. But Sue, thankfully, at 45 years old, kidding, I think she doesn't have anything to worry about. I don't even know why she lied about it. I really don't. I think it's silly. It's like when people say like, oh, I'm a lawyer, I'm not going to tell anyone. Who cares? Are we litigating out here? No. I'm a cop. I can't tell people. What, are we shooting people? Then don't worry about it. It's fine. Everyone has professions. It doesn't matter. And on the Gata Tribe, I love the Gata Tribe because right now, I feel like the Gata Tribe is where the winner is going to come from. And based on the edit, I think the winner is Sam already. But I could be set up for an obvious win and a sad disappointment in the end. Because Sam is so well insulated. Every one of his confessionals is showing how incredibly competent he is, how he's moving every piece in the game, and more importantly, why so many people want to tell him information. The biggest thing is, we saw from basically the Caleb's school from 45 of scooping up people on the bottom, he scooped up Andy, who looked hopeless after episode 1. Now, Andy is looking at Sam as if he is like his owner in the game. He's like, oh my God, I really want to go outside. I hope you open the door. And that's what Andy looks like towards Sam. And that's okay, because Andy had a tough start to the game and he needs to find footing. Emily, to some degree, was looking in that direction at Caleb in Survivor 45. And wouldn't you know it, Emily ended up far surpassing any potential Caleb had in the game. She could have won Survivor 45 if one or two bounces go the other way. Andy? I'm ready to say that Andy absolutely could win this season if a few bounces go a little differently. Right now, he is compiling an alliance with himself and potentially Sierra and Sam. And that's all he needs to get into the majority of Gata. And once the merge comes around, it gets a lot more interesting, because there was a journey to which he, Teeny, and Caroline went on. And, they had to risk their vote, essentially. One person had to risk their vote or all of them were going to lose their votes. Teeny risked their vote and got them the amulet advantage. We all love the amulet advantage. That's the advantage last on Survivor 45, where J. Maya, Kelly, and Austin famously gave up a whole plate of sandwiches in order to get the amulet advantage, which means when there's 3 people left, you have to play it together, or it can't be played at all, and it becomes like a steal a vote, or if you play it with 2, it has a lesser advantage, and if you play it with 1, it's a full-blown idol. So really what it does is, it doesn't incentivize you to work together. It incentivizes you to vote each other out. So now, Teeny, Caroline, and Andy should all be aiming for one another. Now, Andy told his whole tribe about the amulet, so all of Gata knows what the deal is, which was very smart on his part. He's not a good enough liar to get away with it. Once the merge comes, I have a feeling everyone will be on his side. They'll have his back. I think Sam will see it as another toy to use in his arsenal in order to win the game. And I think it's fascinating. Now, I think Andy is definitely not the number one. I still think it's Sierra and Sam. But Andy is nicely nestling himself in between them, just like a dog getting in a married couple's bed, trying to sleep a little bit. I think that's what Andy's doing right now. And eventually, the dog outlasts a husband or a wife in those marriages. So I think we may see Andy get very far with one or both of those people. But some of the big highlights of the episode that I have to talk about, Sol and Rome. Holy shit. I mean, Rome, the way he talked to Sol, I mean, he babysat Sol the whole day and he tried to avoid him getting the hidden immunity idol. He wanted to make sure he got no really leverage in any way that could distort the vote. He even got to a point where he decided he was going to talk to Sol and said, by the way, I have a steal a vote. So here's what's got to happen. You have to give me your shot in the dark so that everyone's not nervous. Or I'm just going to use the steal a vote and I'm going to take your vote and you can't use the shot in the dark anyway. So what are you going to do? And Sol recognizes it as a threat immediately, to which Rome says it's an ultimatum, not a threat. Well, okay, buddy boy, that was an ultimatum, and it was also a threat. Not every threat is an ultimatum, but every ultimatum is a threat. So we have to clear that out of the way real quick. And Sol, rightfully so, fought back with him and said, dude, I'm like getting threatened right now. This is crazy. And honestly, lesser men would have socked Rome in the face. But Sol is not a lesser man. He is a gigantic titan that we should all aspire to be. I love Sol so much. I'm a part of the Sol Patrol at this point. I would love it if Sol won this game. I don't think he will, but I would love it if he remained in this game for a very long time. Rome is too erratic of a player. He's too aggressive. And I will say there is a purpose to being erratic and aggressive in Survivor. It's not the worst set of traits in the world to get through the game. You're probably not going to win the game that way. I mean, look at Q. Q from Survivor 46. Was he going to win the game? Probably not. But did he make it pretty far being kind of all over the place? Yeah, he did. And Rome can do that too. You have to have a nose for idols. You have to be decent in challenges. And I think he is. And you have to have confidence in your moves and work with your gut. And Rome seems to be willing to learn more from new information. And thankfully, Genevieve really helped him along this episode with that last moment. Because there's other people who would just stick with what they know. They're like, no. The plan is, straightforward. We're going for Sol. Genevieve ended up looping him in and they flipped the script. Rome is taking all the bullets in the game, and Genevieve had a breakout party. I mean, she was basically Where's Waldo. She even wears the red and white stripes of Where's Waldo. And still, this past episode, this badass lawyer lady from Canada who was purpled. That means she had zero personality the first couple episodes. She broke out, and everyone by the end of the episode is like, yo, is this Cersei Lannister that's on screen right now? I love this. And it was great to see that. It was awesome to see it. She's clearly helping kind of manipulate Rome a little bit in a partnership way, not in an evil way, in a partnership way where they're going to work together moving forward. And why shouldn't she? I mean, Rome is like a great attack dog for someone like Genevieve. I think you want to keep Rome in the game as much as you can because he does take bullets. I mean, Sol hates his guts. Teeny's not going to like Rome all that much. Genevieve is not going to be the most loved, but Genevieve is much easier to work with than Rome probably. So I think Genevieve flipping that vote on Kesan was incredible. I mean, having Rome last second blindside Kesan and take his vote, and then everyone essentially turns around and votes out Kesan, that was pure Survivor gold. That is new era liquid oil gold. I love it. I want it more and more and more. And I know Survivor fans are really upset at Rome at this point. 2 weeks in a row, they've gotten rid of likable characters in Kesan and Asia. But that's the game, man. I love seeing stuff like this happen. Rome is becoming public enemy number one. And it's fascinating because he hasn't really done anything that wrong except for yell in Sol's face, which I think that was wrong. And Sol should have probably socked him in the face. But Sol would be out of the game if he had done that. So Sol, bless you for not doing it. But he definitely deserved it. And it's funny kind of seeing the behavior of Rome and how people really don't like Rome very much. I'm hearkening back to Survivor 46. And to me, the ultimate villain of the season, people will say Q or they'll say Maria. To me, the clear most unlikable person out there on the island was Venus. By far. It was so obvious that Venus is the one that you should not root for in this game. She was on the bottom of every phase of the game. If Nami went to tribal council one time, before the merge, I'm pretty sure she would have been gone. However, she was saved by having a really strong team. She was abrasive with people. She would accost them.
I live for the chaos. And Hunter, he was the king of the jungle and now is the village idiot. Come on, Hunter, Mr. Strategy. What's your...
Yeah, that's me.
These bumbling buffoons, these two dumb meatheads who think that they are running the show, they've been exposed as these two rats who are like trying for strategy, trying for power, but failing miserably at it.
And I thought she was super unlikable in that way. So there's actually a lot of attributes I see in Rome that can be correlated to Venus. It's not dead on, but it's similar. But it's funny being involved as a content creator and watching online a lot. I see a lot of people, not big fans of Rome, but I see just as many people love Venus. So I'm going to make a bold claim. If you loved Venus in 46, you have to love Rome in 47. You can't love the chaos in one and hate it in the other. Or is it just because Rome's plans actually work and he did shit? Like, is that why you don't like Rome? Because he smack talks and he actually backs it up, whereas Venus just got mad and was just a victim the whole game? Like, is that really what it comes down to, the victimhood of it all? I don't know. I'm curious. But anyway, those are the hot talking points of the episode for me that I really wanted to talk about. I think those are the biggest ones. There's a lot we can discuss. There's so much more ahead for Survivor 47. It's going to be ridiculous. Apparently, next episode, there's a new twist that we don't know anything about and we haven't seen before. I was hoping for just a simple tribal swap. I think that would really mix things up nicely. Teeny still has a possible winners edit. However, their path at this point, I'm not really sure what that looks like with Kesan out of the game. I think they either need to win some challenges or there needs to be a huge mix-up. Maybe something like 44 will happen where one person from each tribe gets kind of moved around. Like Carson ended up going to, I think it was Rat 2. And we had Josh went over to Tika, all that fun stuff. So I think maybe that's something that would have to happen in order for it to kind of work out. And we'll see. We do have more idols left in the game. We need to figure out who's going to get the Lavo idol. That could change things incredibly. Sue, of course, has her idol for Tuku. That's a good full idol for the rest of the game. And Sam, of course, still has the idol from Gata. So it's going to be exciting to see how these things shape up. We should be merging in about 2 weeks, something like that. I'm a big buff collector, and I know the merge buff is slated to come out in 2 weeks. I know what the color is, and I'm very annoyed by it. But what did you think of the episode? Did you like the episode? I thought it was really good. It was one of the best episodes I've seen in the new era in a while. And, you know, as much as I make fun of Jeff Probst for how he does new era stuff because he's the main creative guy these days, I have to admit that some of it gets results. I don't hate new era Survivor, but some of it is so cheesy. And I'm like, oh, how do we even do this? That's going to do it. Thank you again for watching. Hope you have an absolutely amazing, fantastic, brilliant day.